Today we're going to talk about alternators. What an alternator is that not many people know that they have them if they haven't actually looked into their car and how they work. Majority of the cars today are called generators. Now it's practically the same thing, except it's reconstructed and looking different than what it actually was before. What an alternator does is that there's a stator on the inside with a rotor that can convert AC volts to DC volts to recharge your battery as your engine runs. So basically it takes mechanical energy and turns it into electricity. Kind of like those windmills that you see like along the turnpike or in other parts of the state. Mine in my truck is starting to make some noise, and it's also starting to die down on what DC volts are coming out of it. Right now it's running right around 10.5. It should be around 14.2. It can run at 13.8. That is fine. It's well within parameters. But nevertheless, let's get into it and I'll narrate as I go so that way you can see what I'm doing. Alright, now first things first, we got to disconnect that negative side of the battery so we're all safe. Make sure you have the right tools. Sometimes it takes a little bit, but on this particular one you need a 15 millimeter. Just it on the bolt of the idler pulley for the belt itself. That actually releases the belt so you can take it off of there. The bolts for this alternator are 9/16. Now granted, not everyone will have the real extension long ones, so that's why I'm using the short ones to kind of show examples. And you got to make sure you get the front and back, because some of them only have through bolts and some of the mounting ports are actually threaded, so you don't always have a nut on the back end. This one does. Make sure you keep everything together so you know exactly where it is, because believe me, losing a bolt is not always the best thing to deal with. Now unplugging the back is making sure so that way you have the voltage readings on your meter to work in case you break that. So you don't want to worry about that. Right now I'm trying to get it nudged loose because there's actually a sleeve at the bottom of there that kind of wedges it in there. So where it's supposed to come out, sometimes it's really tight and sometimes it's not. This particular setup, that the way it's supposed to happen is that you're supposed to actually discharge the entire air conditioning system and then work on getting the alternator out. Well, we're not going to do that. We're going to work around that. We're going to sift it right out from underneath these lines and we're going to get everything taken care of. And with a wedge like this, let's go ahead and get that cable off. Now bear with me, the struggle is real, guys. Finding that 10 millimeter is always a struggle. Oh look, here we go. Alright, we'll get that 10 millimeter bolt off of there, get your cable off. And there we go, we got the alternator out. Alright, if anyone was paying attention, whenever I took this wire off, if you can actually see, it decided to split over the years. Now, since it's not rusted inside, I'm not terribly worried about replacing the whole thing, but it is a good idea to at least protect it and wrap it up a couple layers and you should be perfectly fine. Get this all fixed up here and we'll get back to it and put the new one in. Alright, razor blade to trim it off. Let's get back to it. Alright, we're ready for the new one. Basically the same thing in reverse. I'll just let it roll with it because you want to make sure you slide it in exactly how you took it out. Since you have room, hook up that cable that runs right to the battery. 10 millimeter, make sure it's nice and snug. After that, of course, you got to plug it back in and slide it back in the port. If you look at the bottom of the alternator while I'm sliding it in there, you can see that little sleeve that I was talking about. Once you tighten it up, it'll actually snug everything together. Now granted, when I go to take it back off, if I have to, it'll be snug again, but that is perfectly fine. Not alternators will be right on top, they'll usually be everywhere else depending on the manufacturer. Some are on top on either side of the engine, some are actually on the very bottom of the engine, and some are midsection or flipped around depending on which one you have. Now you definitely want to make sure that it's tightened down properly so that way you don't have anything flopping around while your motor is running, because that'll just end up with a failure. What you want to do when you put your belt back on, you want to make sure that it's right. And believe me, if what you just saw is that it happens to everyone. I dropped a wrench. I get it tight and make sure the belt is on all the splines. And if you look, I have to actually readjust this so that way it's lined up on the water pump. And look, we're all done. Now don't forget to subscribe and like, and we'll see you next time.